So we did the presentation at SourceCon, and as soon as we walked off stage, a recruiter ran up to me and said, "My hiring manager just called, and they think they have a fake applicant. They think that the applicant was using AI. The answers were too perfect. What do we do? AI can listen to your interview, and it can construct the answers that you as a candidate would say." And so some of my managers have said, "Are you using AI to answer my questions? Do you mind not doing that? Let's just have a conversation." And they said that the conversation gets much better, but they are asking candidates to stop.
The fake applicants, one of the things that I wish I could take credit for, I would have loved to have found it, but Gail found it, was this guy he was doing information security, which is a very, you need to make sure that you've got the right people in this job
So he's doing an interview and he felt like the guy was using a fake face.
base.
There would be times when the candidate would move and he would see a different color skin kind of behind the candidate's face. And he finally told the candidate, he said, "I need you to wave your hand in front of your face." And the candidate refused. And the guy's like, "If you don't do it, the interview is immediately over." So it was somebody who was using a different face. There's candidates who are using voiceovers for different accents and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a best practice for people that if you do have somebody that you think it's a fake interview, there's certain things that you can have them do. The first one is, can you please go like this? Because if they're using an image, any kind of likeness that's over them, that does throw that off. Where it's real interesting is when if you see the person raise their hand up. I don't know if you even in the video you see it is it's almost like they're missing fingers and stuff like that. It was a definite interesting one.
Hi there, I'm Denise Chaffin, and I am your podcast host for Talking TA. And today I have with me a duo. Gail Houston is in recruitment for a company called Grail, and Jim is president of a company called Recruiting
Recruiting
Advisors.
advisors.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you got it right.
And both are co directors for the DFW Texas Recruiters Network, or DFW
Mhm.
TRN. So we're going
Absolutely.
to launch into a great conversation today. We decided to title our conversation today "Recruiters Beware." And it's
Okay.
about AI in action for recruitment. And I know everyone's probably getting tired of this conversation, but we'll put a great new spin on this for our industry. So who would like to start? I think that first of all, I would like to hear from both of you. Gail, why don't you start first and give us a little bit about your background and what brought you here?
Sure. I've been recruiting for over 30 years, and I'm one of the original founders of the DFW TRN. And one of our missions is to make sure that we're educating recruiters and trying to help them be leading edge. I feel like we've got some of the strongest recruiters in the nation right now due to some of the work that we've been doing. I currently work for a company called Grail. We're a company that's created a blood test that's detecting cancer, and it's super exciting to be working for a company that's so leading edge right now.
Wow. That is awesome. I love hearing
Okay.
that kind of business, about that kind of business. Jim, what about you?
Background? I'll do my best, keep it short. I tend to talk a little bit, being a past recruiter, right? So let's see. I'm president of Recruiting Advisors. We're a small consulting firm. We specialize in Avature and CRM and ATS implementations. Been doing that 7 years. Have a lot of fun with configuring the Avature system. Prior to that, I was with PepsiCo in recruiting and led the sourcing team while I was there for I was with PepsiCo for 17 years, actually. So did a little bit of everything while I was there. So ATS, CRM, and then employee referral programs, you name it. So a lot of training of different folks. So over the years, and then actually, I think all of us on this call all got our start as agency
Right.
recruiters, right? So We all got into it from the commission-based stuff.
It's interesting. There's a guy by the name of Ian McKenzie, and I'd love to give him a shout out whenever I can because he was just a great guy to work with. And he worked for Intel in talent acquisition, and then he went into HR operations later. But Ian made a comment one time. He said, "I think the best recruiters," and of course he's saying it with a British accent. He said, "I think the best recruiters are people who started out in the agency world and then transitioned over to corporate." He said, "Because they have this just this sense of urgency because we were all working on commission, right?
Oh,
So
hell,
he
Right.
feels we have this sense of
absolutely.
urgency about our jobs even when we transitioned to corporate because of the way we were
Right.
trained." So
Yep.
Right.
I would 100% agree with that. Just
I do
because, I mean,
too.
it's like
I do too.
it's one. I think the other is I think we're trained differently. I think because we're trained to be more consultative and you have to sell your value as opposed to I'm here to do my job and it's transactional. So because you have to prove your value every day in order for people to pay the additional fees and money that are in it.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah, you have to be on 100% of the
That's right.
time.
I think we could say whatever we want. All three of us started that way, right?
Yeah.
So we could say
Absolutely.
we're the greatest, right? No, yeah, yeah.
Well, and
Too
and
much
and
fun.
Gail made a comment a while ago too about Texas having some of the best recruiters. Why is that, Gail?
I think a lot of it is because we have had this mindset that we have to be leading edge. We have to adopt early. And Jim and I have been really focused ever since we've been speaking together, which has been for years, on trying to make sure we're getting training out to recruiters on the latest and greatest. So we started training in AI years ago. We were training in social way before social was fully adopted by recruiters. We've done all sorts of sourcing techniques and different recruiting strategies, things like that, just to get people to think differently. But a lot of it is just trying to get them to adopt and adopt early so that they're not behind.
Yeah, but the other thing is also
Mm.
I'm a guy that likes to talk about scoreboard and stuff like that. Let scoreboard give the results. But both of us are past corporate recruiters of the year for the Dallas area.
Mhm.
And also in the Dallas area, you've got a number of people that are what are called SourceCon grandmasters. So if you're familiar with SourceCon, they used to do a competition which was where yeah, there were 200, 300, sometimes 500 people would start, and it can come down to one person who gets the crown of being Grand Master for the SourceCon Grand Master. And there's three of us.
Mhm.
I was actually lucky enough to be one of those, but there's three,
Yeah, I think
at least three here in the Dallas area. So, which is kind of cool.
Wow. Well, it's interesting because when I attended a conference there a couple years ago, the people that I spoke with had mentioned just several associations, several collaborative kind of groups and whatnot that are in Texas. And I was telling Gail the other day, we need to kind of regenerate that, I think, in some of the other states, because I think during COVID, some of the associations that were going on in other states kind of fell down and they just haven't been given that boost that they need. So I appreciate you guys bringing that up because I think the other states need to listen to this and go, "Ooh, we need to compete with that."
well, and we really dug in during COVID and started putting on webinars, which was great because we could go beyond the in-person meetings in Dallas and we can pretty much go worldwide. And so a lot of our training webinars have been worldwide. There's been people from all over. We've also been able to attract different trainers to come in because we've gone to the webinar based. And it's been awesome.
So tell me, you mentioned one of you just mentioned a while ago, and I think that it came up in an earlier conversation that AI has been around for a long time. It's not something new. I did a podcast interview with a guy by the name of Eric Moss, who's an engineer that goes way back to the Motorola days when I worked for Motorola. And I've known him that long. And he talked about AI started actually back in the 80s, 1980s.
Oh,
Right.
sure.
So
Yeah.
when we look at what AI is doing for our industry, it seems like AI is new, but it's really not. It's new to our industry, right? And one of the things that we spoke about yesterday, Gail, was the fact that we need to look at some of the AI in action as we were talking about it. And what are some of the use cases that we're seeing right now that are going to boost recruiter productivity, especially since there's so many recruiters who are worried about losing their jobs. I think this is a good conversation. So do you one of you want to start on that?
Well, one of the things I think is interesting is back in 2017, I believe, that's when SourceCon did a challenge, putting an AI tool, Brylant, against SourceCon Grandmaster folks. And back then, I thought in 2017, I'm like, okay, this AI thing is going to catch on because this was amazing. The AI tool came in third, but it solved the problem in 2 point something seconds
0.5 seconds.
compared to what it took the sorcerers that won. It took them like 23, 24 hours, that type of thing. And so I thought back in 2017, I'm like, wow, this is really going to catch on and it's going to explode. And then it just kinda went away, and we didn't really hear anything about it. And so when Jim called me, and I think it was November 2022, and he's like, "Yeah, I need to talk to you about this ChatGPT thing." And we started exploring it, and we started really digging in and trying to kind of figure it out. We both looked at each other and we're like, "This actually has legs, and this is probably gonna catch on." And so we immediately started training and started teaching people, "Here's what ChatGPT is, here's what AI is, here's what we think it can do." And it has caught on so rapidly and is transforming. Like every single day now, I use AI in my job for pretty much everything.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. But I mean, even back then, we were talking about how you can adopt it and put it into your process as a recruiter. Some of the use cases we can cover here as well. I mean, of just here's how you can use it for personalization, here's how you can use it for research, everything from talent mapping and everything. So we can go into all of this if you'd like. But I mean, even right when it came out, a month or two right afterwards, we were talking about these are the use cases. This is how you can do it. And so hopefully some people are tuning in today to get some of those use cases as well. So
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's start. Give us an example of a use case that you've seen. I mean, for maybe even going back a few years, because you said 2017. Do you see any use cases or have any examples that date back that far that would be advantageous to share?
yeah, with Brian, like with the in so 2017, what the model did was they pointed it at the entire database and asked it to evaluate all the candidates that were in this database, an ATS basically, and said, I want you to select the candidate out of these 200. Who were the top five? I think it was like top five, top 10. Who were the top 10? Who were the five that got interviewed? Who were the three that were the finalists and who was the one that accepted the job. And it was able to go through and filter through that in 2.5 seconds.
right.
And I mean, it was just stunning at how it did. So even back then, the intelligence and the models and everything that was working was just amazing. But I mean, as we were talking, in the recruiting industry, I mean, all of us had talked about in a previous call before this one, where we all talked about how different systems back in the 90s that we all use, like a Resumex or something, where there was artificial intelligence, obviously, but it was machine learning. It wasn't generative AI at that time. But it's been around a while, but it's just when you start, now that you got the generative flair to it, it just changes it up a little bit. But
Right.
yeah,
And one of the first things that we did when we started exploring is we started using it for talent mapping. Jim and I both have led sourcing teams before, and I always teach my sourcers, I want you to build a talent map when you're looking at a new type of role. Don't build it role specific like this particular job rec, but build it, here's a talent for product management overall so that you don't have to keep relearning every time you do that position over again. Talent match used to take us weeks to do. And we were always adding to them. I can now go into an AI tool and I can say, help me understand a bioinformatics engineer. Because that was one of the first things Jim and I started experimenting with because I had joined this scientific company. I'd never worked for a company like this before. And I was like, what the heck is
it
bioinformatics?
was a perfect use case because I had never done recruiting for it. So I just put on my hat like a sorcerer
Right.
and I did the research. I said, okay, here's the model that we're going to use. I am going to go out. We're going to do the research on what is this role. Then, okay, I'm going to say, what are the companies that use this? Then let's widen it. Like, who are other companies that are doing this? Like, who are your competitors and who else does this? What are the colleges that recruit from this? And so we just used it as a use case, and it was almost comical
Yeah.
because it was a perfect use case that we were able to use, and we just trained on that, and we just said, "Here's what we did, here's how we did it, and this is what we used."
Mhm. And it's amazing because I'm still handling roles that I've never done before.
Yeah.
And so that's the first thing I do is I go into ChatGPT and I'm like, help me understand this role.
Sure.
And if it's a really complicated role, sometimes I'll even say things like, treat me like I'm a middle schooler or a high schooler to try to get it to be like super, super simple
Yeah.
so that it makes sense. And I'll say, give me questions to ask candidates, give me answers that are expected from these candidates. And then we take it even further. And we will, if you have a ChatGPT instance that's behind the firewall, which we do at my company, I'll put resumes in there and I'll say, help me understand if this candidate is qualified or not qualified. Help me understand the gaps in this candidate's resume. Help me understand where their strengths are. I really like the gap question because that tells me in my interview where to deeply probe. And it's been awesome because oftentimes that candidate does have that experience, but it's not listed on their resume. And so we're able to call that out. And that's why I don't trust the AI tools that will evaluate a resume and say, no, this candidate isn't qualified. Like I won't let my AI tool just tell me somebody's not qualified. I still read the resumes. I still, at times, I'm like, there's enough here. Like it may say it's not qualified based on a title. They may have a different title. They may still be doing the exact work. And so we're not allowing it to disqualify resumes, but we are using AI to really help us evaluate the resumes quicker and faster and give us the specific areas to probe. And so again, we use it every single day, which is amazing.
Let me ask you a question real quick too before I'm still thinking of it. You mentioned too when you're doing this talent mapping and you're asking the chat GPT or whatever tool you're using to provide you with questions to ask the candidates. Have you taken those questions that the platform provides to you and shared them with the hiring team to see if those are the same types of questions that they would have given to you had you asked them directly?
Yeah. I think in our even in our first presentation that we did together, it was since neither of us I didn't know what the profile was. I went into ChatGPT and I said, "Give me a job description for a bioinformatics engineer." And then it's one of those where, hey, it's the first time that you're doing recruiting for this role. You know, take the job description, you bake one up basically, and then share it with the hiring manager and say, "Am I on the right track? Is this what you're seeking? Can you fill out the rest of it?" So they're not able to create something from scratch. But second thing is that please, ChatGPT, please give me some questions that I might ask candidates that are for this. And then it's also great to be able to go to the hiring manager and say, these are the questions that I plan on using to pre-qualify this candidate for you. Are there other ones that you would like me to add? And they're like, wow, you really know my profile.
Right.
You really don't, right? So little tricks like that. So I mean, but the other is that I think we also shared it to put together a profile of what a good candidate would look like. Like what does a solid profile look like? And use it as a test candidate. We used to do this as agency recruiters. You would use a trial resume to really say what are the required and what are the preferred. Is this really a required skill or is it preferred? And you test it. And then one of the big buzzwords used to be, still is kind of like the talent advisor. Doing that really helps you be the consultative recruiter that you can be, right? So those are just some use cases that we always, I mean, even when it was early on that we were preaching, right? So
Well, and the other thing that you need to do is you're learning about your position because, again, you've got interviews going on. You're learning every day about the position. Something becomes a must, something then becomes a plus. We go back into, I have projects in ChatGPT. I'll go back into my project and I'll say, hey, learning and development is actually really important, but life science is an absolute must. And so I'm constantly telling the project what the requirements are and adjusting the requirements. And I'm like, re rank all the candidates based on that. And so it'll go through and it will re-rank candidates for me. And again, I don't totally trust the rankings, but it's like I've got another recruiter in the room kind of talking me through it. I'm like, why did you rank that candidate higher than this candidate?
mm,
And I found some bias in one of the projects I was doing because it kept ranking all my candidates that had AI experience higher than everybody else. That was like a fifth requirement. It wasn't the top requirement. So I had to go back and say, hey, AI isn't the most important. Even though you think it is, it's not the most important. It's probably number 5. And then I had to get it to kind of re-rank the candidates based on that.
but I think that's great that what you mentioned that you're doing, because what you're doing is you're recognizing you inadvertently put in kind of a hallucination in there, right? So, I mean, you kind of put that in there and you didn't realize it, but you actually prevented that by doing that, which I think is clever.
Yeah, I think it read my notes where the candidate was saying, "I'm only one of like 100 or 1,000, whatever it was, that has this certification." And so in the candidate notes, it kinda elevated AI,
Yeah.
and that made it elevate the ranking. And so I had to look at it and go, "Why are you ranking it high? Because it's not even really on my list." But it was from the candidate notes where she was
Got it.
kinda bragging, which I would brag too.
Okay, now that's an interesting thought, right? Because if you have a resume now, one of the things that came up in another interview I had was the fact talk about biases was the fact that AI has the unconscious bias decisions based on the criteria we're asking it to seek out. So let's say that there's 5 resumes that match a search, and let's say 2 of them have the same first name of Tom. And this came up in a book, and they have the first name as Tom. So if that one of those 2 Toms gets selected, is there gonna be then a bias towards somebody with the name Tom? Or maybe 3 out of the 5 people went to the same university. So later on for a similar search, is there gonna be a bias then to find people from that university? And these were some of the biases that were talked about. Have those been worked out, or what's your experience with that?
So I don't experience that in my projects necessarily, but I do know ATSs have experienced that where they've initiated AI to do reviews and things like that. I know Amazon experienced it really early on because they were way ahead of a lot of other companies and they actually created their own tools.
Oh, that's right,
Um,
that got shut
mhm.
down.
But in my projects, I haven't necessarily experienced that. It's more been the bias towards a certain skill set, and it just kept bringing those candidates higher for whatever reason.
But I think it's also in the way that you train it, right? So a lot of the tools that train the more like this or the thumbs up or the thumbs down,
Yeah.
I think it's all in the way that you're training it. But I think that a lot of reasons that people like leveraging AI is because of its lack of bias, believe it or not. I mean, because that the AI does not introduce personal bias into the decision making.
No, but that's conscious
So
bias though, right?
conscious
Where
bias, yeah.
where
Yeah.
the unconscious bias is what I was talking about a few minutes ago.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but I think it's all in the way that it is trained. I think it's all in the if you have said, please, if you find like this, because it's the if you're leveraging the more like this, I don't know that it actually you could say, please do not look at. You can almost train it to be redacted on. Do not look at where the person lives. Look at the name or any of that. Just look at the skills. So it just depends on the way that it's written and the way that it's trained.
So I guess we need to train ourselves on what criteria we're going to give the prompt, right? In order to uh, get back something that's like true without any bias.
Yeah. Or just as your prompts, just like, I want you to play the part of a top tier recruiter with not leveraging bias and this, and boom. That's always one of my favorites is use a persona when you're doing the any type of prompts.
Well, and since we talked about location just now, it brought up a thought. So we were using a tool that was looking at resumes and it was saying these candidates are qualified, these candidates are not qualified. But candidates don't always put location on their resume. And they're kind of trained to do that. Don't put a location, just let the recruiter fall in love with you. They'll find reload, yada, yada, yada. And it was taking everybody who didn't have the right location and it was saying they weren't qualified. And so we gave feedback to the tool saying you cannot disqualify based on location because candidates don't always have it. And so that particular tool, they did adjust that. We noticed in our ATS, which we use Lever doesn't look at the location to give us a yes, no, and a new tool they have called Talent Fit. But again, we don't look at Talent Fit and just unconsider everybody who didn't match. We're still looking at the resumes because it's not foolproof yet.
Yeah. And then the tool I use with Avature, you have the capability of tweaking everything, right? So you can say location, yes, location, no. You can actually treat it as one of the items that you leverage to bring people in. You can score whatever. So it's one of those great things. But My game is CRM and ATS, so I play a lot in that.
And what advancements are you seeing though, Jim? I mean, with the ATS, because it's these hallucinations and these unconscious biases are it's just some of the early stage issues that we're running into incorporating AI into our industry.
Yeah. I'd say a lot of the world of agentic is being definitely embraced. There's a lot of people that hadn't heard a lot about agentic until maybe the last 3 months, let's
Yeah.
say. And so everybody's like, what is this agentic? I find myself training people on like generative AI is good for like producing content, letters, et cetera, like that, like a personalized email. Agentic is like the different world where it's almost like an orchestra leader that will actually make things happen. It operationalizes that information. So the way of everything, Aperture with all of the different systems, agentic is the way that everything is operating. Of course, Copilot being where it's you're not having the system basically do 100% everything. There are pieces, checks and balances that you want to have. You want to leverage automation when you can, but most definitely, the ATSs, CRMs are embracing it, and everybody is bringing more and more, trying to give the recruiter the ability to leverage automation where you have it. I mean, it's so impressive. Some of the things that you can do now. I mean, we're blessed to live in this time that to where we can have the systems do so many things.
Well, I know one of the things that we ask for with an ATS is it's scoring the candidates individually,
Mhm.
but there was no kind of like higher level view based on the rec. And we want to see a higher level view based on the rec. Here's all the candidates and here's all the scores.
Yeah,
And
you don't have the ability.
we didn't in our particular system,
Okay.
so we've asked for that kinda higher level overview. Because right now we're having to go outside of our ATS, go create something in ChatGPT, and then take it back to our leaders. We don't wanna have to keep leaving an ATS to go do stuff other places. We want everything to be done in one place if possible.
Yeah.
And right now, we're constantly bouncing out of the ATS into ChatGPT and then back to the ATS. Yeah, and ideally, you want it all kinda integrated together because you don't wanna keep having to use a whole bunch of different
But
systems.
you also, I mean, but obviously to be careful, you need to have the transparency of
Mhm.
how the decision was made
Correct.
because I mean, there's a lot of things out there right now, questions on AI decisions or how are decisions made based on certain stuff. So, it's one of those that I think obviously that everybody it's also moving so fast and everybody is moving at embracing all the AI. It's just one of those things where it's just move ahead, but also be careful in what you're doing. I think that what we saw was early on was everyone had started towards the jobs and the things that are not candidate facing, right? To where the candidate isn't going to definitely or possibly see content that is AI generated that may have a hallucination or something like that. So I think a lot of the vendors they moved first towards the jobs and then have moved more towards the candidate communication and all the other stuff that might be visible to folks. So, but yeah,
Well, and one of the things you talked about previously too, Jim, was the fact that you can kind of create now your own GPT, you said, right?
yeah,
Mhm.
So
most definitely.
how would that play into our space then at this point?
Oh, wow. I was using Operator, so I had the full version of GPT, ChatGPT, which included Operator, which, believe it or not, they're now doing away with because it's being integrated into the agents and the agentic in ChatGPT 5. But the way that Operator works is it allows you to imagine if you've always had that vision of having a recruiting assistant and you just say, recruiting assistant, I want you to do this. You say, I want you to do this. This is how I want it done. And check back with me when you're done. That's operator, which now has become agent and agentic. It was the first version of that. So you have the ability of basically pointing it at something and having it do it. When it first came out, what's the first thing that I did being a past sourcer and all this other stuff? I'm like, go to LinkedIn. I was early adopter. I said, go to LinkedIn. And I said, look for the top 5 people that do this. Give me their LinkedIn profiles, everything about them, and then bring it back. That quickly got shut down after I did it. And I think I may have talked about it I brought it from
Yeah.
I had it come back and I was like, put it in a table for me and give it to me to her. And I was like, wow. But the idea of being able to do that competitive intelligence and that research, you can say, like I used it just the other day. I do Avature implementations and I'm always looking for clients, customers, all the other stuff. And I went out and I just said, hey, I want to know all the people that have Avature, right? And I know most of the clients, but I went out and I used a Boolean query and I basically said, agent, use this Boolean asterisk dot avature dot net. Please tell me all the companies that have this, put it into a table. And it went out, came back later, had all this stuff in a table. And then I gave it a little more intel. And I just was like, hey, I want you to do this. I want you to do this, find this, leverage this, tweak it a little bit, and then come back like 5 minutes later, came back and it had a full list. So pretty impressive. But Gail, Gail has a funny story about the first time ever she heard that you could create your own GPT, right? So,
Yeah. So Jim Jim is super techie, and he's telling me, he goes, "Okay, I want you to go create a GPT." And I'm like, "Jim, I'm not you. I'm not technical. I can't do this." And he goes, "You trust me, you can do it." And so I trusted him and I went out and I created my very first GPT. It was a source of hire GPT.
yeah, upper right hand corner,
Oh,
create GPT, custom GPT, you know,
and he goes,
yeah,
"Just talk to it."
yeah.
And so that was the very first GPT I created, and I showed it to my team, and I'm like, "Guys, I'm not Jim, I'm not a techie, but I did this myself." We then had a recruiter on my team who we wanted a recruiter assistant. And so he created this GPT for us called Talent Assistant. And it does all sorts of things. It will act as a recruiter and it will create job descriptions and messaging and things like that. It will act as a sourcer and create talent maps. He was working on the recruiter coordinator part. What was interesting when he created that GPT, though, is it kept breaking. And he discovered along the way that it's breaking because we made it so big.
Uh,
And so we actually kinda had to pull it apart, and that's when ChatGPT came up with projects. And so now we do projects instead, but it was really interesting, like, looking at the power of this GPT and looking at everything. You could just kinda go to one place because we were trying to not have to go to a million different places. We were trying to go to one place.
yeah.
Let me look at internal equity in one place. Let me do comp ratio in one place. Let me research salary in one place. And so it was this amazing GPT that he created, and it was so much fun just to kind of watch him work. He's more techie like Jim.
Mm,
And so it was really cool. But as I've taken over the GPT from him, I've learned I don't have to be super techie. All I have to do is talk
yep.
and just say, "This is what I want you to do." And then you can make corrections if it's not working the way that you want it to work.
Oh, yeah.
So
I,
it's been fascinating.
yeah. And talking is like one of the biggest things that multimodal is that. I mean, you can now, I freak people out sometimes that I'll turn on my phone and I'll turn on ChatGPT and I'm like, what am I looking at? And I'm like,
Mhm.
what am I looking at? And it'll tell me and it does all those things. I mean, I spend all my time talking to it. But the one thing is that if you're ever looking at creating one, the easiest thing to do is on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see under where it says ChatGPT, you scroll down a little bit and you'll see, it may say, I'm trying to do this off the top of my head, I think it's GPTs. And if you click on it, it's kind of like apps for your iPhone or your Pixel or whatever you have. And it's you can pick and have different GPTs that people have already made, or you can create your own. And so that's what I taught Gail of how to do is you go out, you click on it, you create your own, and it takes you through this templated journey of how to do it. It's like, what do you want the icon to look like? What do you want this to called? What do you want it to do? And the first one Gail did was it was all around like
Source of hire.
source of hire metrics and tracking and being able to take a standard repeatable great use case standard repeatable spreadsheet where the data changes weekly. You can say, instead of having to recreate this in ChatGPT every week, I want you GPT to be my custom GPT, so when I come in I just upload this in, it's already configured, do it, and it does it. So that's the coolest thing that it has capability of doing, which I absolutely love.
When you talk about creating a chat GPT, so now would you equate a custom GPT to like a chat bot?
Sort of. Yeah, I guess you could have that same experience
GPT
with
could
it.
be a chatbot.
Yeah, you could.
Well, the reason I asked is when somebody was explaining to me the difference between generative AI, which is when you give it a prompt, almost like a Google search, and then it comes back and it gives you the information you asked for. With agentic AI, they said it's almost like a chat bot. Like think of a chat bot, like you guys were talking about, creating your own custom chat bot to do things for your team.
Sure.
Now, that, though, the way I understood it is if you give it something to do, it will also take the next step without being prompted. Is that correct?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's obviously the generative concept behind what we used to know machine learning going to the next step, which was generative AI, which is a totally new world of these LLMs that are out there. And then now the next step, which is the agentic, which is where you give it a task to do and it will go out and do it, which is sometimes mind blowing. And I mean, it still freaks me out with I have a Google Pixel that I can just say, book a table at whatever restaurant and it calls the restaurant. It is the voice. It calls and actually makes the reservation and then prompts me that, okay, dinner for two, 7 p.m. at this place. And you're just like, holy cow.
And you did pay for it too.
What's that?
Get it to pay for it.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
I think I'll have to figure it out. No, I don't know. As much as I trust AI and ChatGPT, I don't know that I would turn it loose on my with my credit card.
On
Yeah,
that card, get it
right.
CZ Elon Musk
No
card.
way.
Yeah. The one thing I will say, the one thing that I did like about Operator and Agentic and everything else that when it first came out, when you would say, I want like LinkedIn, I said, remember when I was telling you about how the first thing that I did, just me being me, I pointed it at LinkedIn and I said, go out here and do this. When it came time to put in my credentials, it was almost like it said, here I'm doing all this stuff, and it handed it to me like it blanked out that it wasn't recording, it wasn't doing anything. And then after I did it, it handed it back to me, which I thought was clever and really cool that it did from a protection standpoint. So I'm big into the whole treating AI kind of almost like as like a co-pilot whenever I can. So
So with Paradox, do you think what's gonna happen then, do you think we'll start seeing more of that though, where you've got these smaller companies? Because there's a lot of companies that are advertising software that would integrate well with the ATS that's supported by AI on different levels. So do you think we'll
mhm.
start seeing more of that with the ATS companies where they will kind of do a lot more mergers and acquisitions with some of these other companies so that they don't have to create their own internal AI systems and they can just kind of integrate with other companies?
Yeah, I mean, it's happening. I mean, like Smart Recruiters was acquired recently, I want to say by SAP. You had Paradox that was acquired by Workday. In the past, you had Oracle that had acquired Taleo, but that was a while ago. So I think that there kind of that I don't know how many more acquisitions there can be out there. But I see it as when companies I've always liked Paradox. I've watched the genesis of them. I've known some of their leaders for a while. I've watched them grow. Very impressive product, very impressive tool. And so it's not an absolute stunner that Workday pulled them in. Workday did have some shortcomings, shall we say, when it came to the ATS CRM world. And so I think having a partner like them is a good one. But I would tell you, in terms of the industry, I don't know how many more acquisitions there can be, but
Well, there's a
you
lot
know,
of ATS companies though.
sure.
A
Yeah, yeah.
lot.
Yeah, most definitely.
Well, it's just it boggles the mind how many there are. I mean, for me, it's interesting too. You bring up SAP acquiring Smart Recruiters. They, I think, also own Success Factors, don't they? Yeah. So I wonder if we'll start seeing more of that. Some of these bigger conglomerates kind of taking hold of some of these companies. So we talked about creating your custom GPT. Now, one of the things too that I thought was super great about you two as a team is the fact that you do train. You were talking about training earlier, recruiters, and you use like layman's terminology to help train recruiters because like you were saying, Gail, so many of us are not techies. We're not IT people. We don't glam onto this stuff as easy as other people. So tell me a little bit about your practices there and your process for training the TA community for what we have coming next with AI and how it's good, how they can work with it.
Yeah, so a lot of it is I have to be able to understand it. Because again, Jim is super techy and he gets really excited sometimes. And he'll be talking 100 miles an hour. And he's like, and then you do this and you do this and you do that. And I just look at him, I'm like, hello, Jim,
Yeah.
dial it back a little bit and help me understand. And so we try to make sure that we give the basics first. Like at the very beginning, we were explaining this is what ChatGPT is. When we were training on social, these are the different social channels, and this is how you're using it. So we always talk basics first. And then as the recruiting industry evolves, then we get more and more technical through it all. But it has to make sense. And for me, I have to see like real world use. I'm not a big ATS. I don't have tons of money at my company to just buy everything. So I have to, what can I do for free? But how do I keep my company safe? How do I make sure that the recruiters aren't doing something that's gonna get them in trouble? And so we just kinda talk through it. And Jim is one of those trainers that can train at any level. He's not so techy that you just get lost. And I think that's important. I think that's what we've always tried to do is to make sure that we're helping those people who don't think they can create their own GPT, feel confident that they can create their own GPT.
Yeah. And I think it's been fun. I think that's why Gail and I always gravitate to doing a lot of presentations together, is that if somebody hits us something super techy, I'm like, hey, I'll handle it. Let me go. I'll just be like, boom, 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 boom. Here we go. Here's how you use it. Do that. And then it's one of those also where if you were ever to see one of Gail and I where our chat is, I'll be like, I'll start off and I'll be like, oh my gosh, you can't believe you can do this. And she's like, okay, hang on, dial it back. Show me a little bit on this, and this. Take me through. And that helps with our presentations because instead of me going, I'm notorious for sometimes in presentations doing rapid fire and people come out of the presentation at the end being like, that was just like a tidal wave that hit me.
Mm.
Whereas Gail has it to where, okay, let's really talk about doing this in a structured manner. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about how you do it. Even what you talked about on where I'm talking about custom GPTs. Let's talk about how you build it, where you start from,
Mhm.
what are the steps that you would need in order to make it effective for you. And so I think that it's one of those where we've kind of worked together to make sure that we can give a good, better understanding to anybody that's in the audience or even students that are looking at using some of the stuff that we've shown.
And we use what we teach. So if I'm teaching talent mapping, we're using AI to do talent mapping. If I'm teaching kind of evaluating the resumes and finding the gaps and things like that, I'm doing it every single day. And I'm discovering this works, this doesn't work. And that's when we were looking at hallucinations. Like we were trying to get AI to go find people. And so when AI first connected to the internet, GPT connected to the internet, I said, tell me the top 100 people in marketing, in recruitment marketing. And it gave me names I recognize. And we just kept experimenting. I'm like, all right, give me the top 10 entry level professional, technical professionals in the Bay Area. And that's when we really learned what hallucinations were. And so because it made up stuff. And I said, why did you make up stuff? You gave me real people for these other examples and now you're making up stuff." It's like, "Oh, I apologize, but entry level people, they don't really have like this external profile yet. So I gave you people and what they might do." And I'm like, "Well, don't do that.
Yeah.
Like, why would you do that to me?"
Yeah.
And and I have been experimenting lately with just saying, "Hey, ChatGPT, tell me the top CLIA directors, the laboratory directors that are CLIA certified," and it's actually giving me names. And yesterday I went out and I said, "Tell me the top technical accounting directors in the Bay Area." Not sure what it was going to give me because in the past it would say, "I'm not a people database. I can't give you names of people." But it gave me companies that would be competitors of ours that we might want to go find people at. And then it actually gave me a name of somebody. And it says, "This is a really good technical accounting director." So I went to LinkedIn and I actually told her, I said, ChatGPT told me you were one of the top technical accounting directors in the Bay Area. So I thought I should talk to you. Now, I don't know if she'll respond or not.
That's great. You're using ChatGPT as your referral
Yeah.
base. I love
Pretty
Right.
that.
much.
Okay,
pretty much.
that's huge right there, Gail.
Yeah.
ChatGPT
We're
gave me your
hoping
name.
she responds
Yeah.
because Jim and I need it for our presentations.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I'm just gonna tell her where I got her name.
Oh,
I
that's
was like,
lovely.
isn't it the
I love
greatest? Yeah.
it.
Is that is that now becoming the trend of the acceptable? Like, hey, I found your profile on LinkedIn. Hey, I found your profile. ChatGPT told me to call.
ChatGPT told me you were one of the best.
ChatGPT said I should reach out to you.
Oh my
Yeah. So
god.
yeah,
And you don't
that
have to do,
is
you know how some people will say, "Hey, well, I'm going to give you the name of somebody, but keep my name confidential," right? And so you'll tell the candidate, "Hey, I got your name confidentially, blah blah blah." But now you don't have to do that.
yeah.
Apparently not. Well, I wanted to ask ChatGPT, why did you give me that person's name? But I needed to leave to come to Jim's.
Yeah.
So I didn't get a chance to ask. But it is one of the questions I'm going to ask. What is it that made you think that she was one of the top people I needed to reach out to?
Yeah.
Because I just want to understand how it thinks.
Here I am now next gen of this that I just was thinking about that if we use a agentic, and so you've got an agent, which is almost like your recruiting assistant that does this, and now you've got a name against potentially that agent, and you're like, hey, agent told me to call you, and they'll be like, who's this? We're like, yeah, it's like I could see that would even be, yeah, I can
You know
just see
what though?
next generation of
Okay,
that.
but I have to say that when I get a call from an agent, I know when I you can tell when you're getting bot
Oh yeah,
calls or whatever you call.
Yeah,
sure.
Do you guys answer them? Do you talk to them or I hang up still?
I hang up.
It depends on the situation. I mean, I do I I know a lot of the bot kind of systems for leveraging them and ways to be able to use them. So do I mess with them a little bit? Maybe. So it's kind of when you know what you can and what you can't say, it's just kind of fun. Like always trying to take it off into the weeds. But yeah,
Well, people are paying for bots now though to blast job almost like an IP targeting kind of thing where they're just blasting jobs out to people. And I don't know if they're getting our phone numbers off of LinkedIn because my phone number's on LinkedIn. So I'm not sure, but it'll advertise jobs now. And it's all bots, you can tell. It's not people sending you texts. They're coming in through agentic AI.
sure. Yeah. I
I
mean,
don't pay
with
attention to those though. I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready to have relationships with a chatbot. I mean, outside of having it be an assistant, yes. So I guess it maybe then I'm kind of talking out both sides of my face here, but for an assistant, yes, I think that's a great idea. But for someone to contact me to present an opportunity to me, I don't know. I think I still want a human. What do you guys
sure.
think?
I think everybody always wants to have that personalized touch. I mean, all of us, I mean, the three of us for sure. I mean, we all were that human touch of the agency
We
side
still
that,
are.
still are. It's all the human touch, right? So it's one where I think it's in our nature. But I mean, more and more people are being open to there are some folks that like my kids don't want to talk to people sometimes. They'll be like, "Okay, can I email them? Can I don't want to have to pick up the phone to make that call. Is there a chat? Is there a chat number? Is there a bot that I can talk to?" It's becoming more commonplace. So it's one where are people okay with applying quickly to roles? I'm seeing I think everybody is. I mean, we see it in a lot of high volume. I have a lot of clients from a high volume standpoint using Aperture where it's, like quick applications, quick, and when that using more and more automation is definitely there. So people are definitely embracing.
Okay, this is a good segue then into a little bit different conversation, but on the same line of the applicant tracking system. So what we're talking about now is going to create a lot more resumes, right? A lot more applicants. I mean, and this is a complaint now with our recruiters. I mean, they're saying, "Oh my gosh, I post this job and I can only keep it posted for an hour because I get 100 applicants," right? So, what's going to happen next, right, with fake applicants? Let's talk about that because that's a
Okay.
problem. That's becoming a
Right.
problem now. How are we going to find, are we going to detect fake applicants with all that's going on? And how is AI going to determine fake applicants?
Gail can tell you some good stories on this one.
Yeah, so we did the presentation at SourceCon, and as soon as we walked off stage, a recruiter ran up to me and said, my hiring manager just called and they think they have a fake applicant. They think that the applicant was using AI. The answers were too perfect. What do we do? How do we determine whether or not the applicant actually knows this stuff? Things like that. I've had managers at my company say, I stopped the candidate because I felt like they were reading answers that AI was given. So, like Final Round AI can listen to your interview and it can construct the answers that you as a candidate would say. And so some of my managers have said, are you using AI to answer my questions? Do you mind not doing that? Let's just have a conversation. And they said that the conversation gets much better, but they are asking candidates to stop. We're actually talking about, do we let candidates use AI on code assessments right now? And so that discussion is going on right now. Meta, I know, they're allowing it. And I think you said Anthropic now is allowing it as well, right?
Well, the Anthropic, they were a funny one way back when Gail we were doing the presentation that they don't allow Anthropic did not allow, and they specifically said if you are applying to a job at Anthropic, you may not use AI in your application process. And they have since stopped that because it's kind of silly that an AI company wouldn't allow you to use AI to apply to an AI job. So no, that's what I was meaning on that one. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, with the fake applicants, one of the things that I wish I could take credit for, I would have loved to have found it, but Gail found it. And you actually reached out to the guy and you got authorization for us to use it in a presentation. And it was this guy he was doing information security, which is a very, you need to make sure that you've got the right people in this job. But here, you could tell the story. I mean,
Yeah, so he's doing an interview and he felt like the guy was using a fake face.
base.
There would be times when the candidate would move and he would see a different color skin kind of behind the candidate's face. And he finally told the candidate, he said, I need you to wave your hand in front of your face. And the candidate refused. And the guy's like, if you don't do it, the interview is immediately over. So it was somebody who was using a different face. There's candidates who are using voiceovers for different accents and things like that. A lot of it is because you might be hiring somebody from North Korea. You might be hiring somebody from one of the countries that you really don't want to hire at your particular company. There's been like an American voice, like, this guy's face was a Caucasian man, and he said when the guy moved, it looked like maybe he was an Indian man. He wasn't sure. But so a lot of people were like, "Wave your hand in front of your face."
Yeah, after this, if you want, I mean, Gail got the okay to share the video, and I mean, from the guy, I don't know whether it was just for that video or publicly, but for that presentation. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of a best practice for people that if you do have somebody that you think it's a fake interview, there's certain things that you can have them do. The first one is, can you please go like this? Because if they're using an image, any kind of likeness that's over them, that does throw that off.
Right.
So, but a face one is really because it zeroes in on the eyes and it's perfect actually. And so it's where it's real interesting is when if you see the person raise their hand up. I don't know if you even in the video you see it's almost like they're missing fingers and stuff like that. So it couldn't quite put it on there, but it was a definite interesting one.
I mean, the problem is fake applicants have been around for a long time. My husband was hiring overseas and getting paper resumes. He was filling contract roles on a military base. And he said they had 500 resumes in front of them and they noticed that all of them looked similar. They all had the same phone number. So they were actually, when you called the phone number, it was actually going to a back room of a burger joint. And it would validate like the employment of all these people that really didn't have any of the experience. So fake applicants aren't new. It's just now they're using AI tools to try to trick us and to try to help it get us to hire people that maybe we shouldn't be hiring.
I did not hear that story.
Oh, it was
That's
it was
ins
crazy. He's like, "Yeah, we had all the resumes, they all looked identical.
that's insane.
Different name on it, but everything was identical." And then we started comparing the phone numbers, and it was easy because they had it in front of them. It was like hard copies, where we may not see some of that because we're online. But it's out there, and like this recruiter that ran up to us after the SourceCon presentation, I don't know what happened. I'm hoping someday she calls me back to tell me, was the applicant, is he as good as what they thought he was? Because half the team thought he was way too good to be true. And the other half of the team was like, he's faking.
Yeah, but it's not uncommon to see videos online where somebody's interviewing and they got their phone up. Here's the Zoom call or whatever they're doing, and they've got their phone. That's the way you usually can see it is if there is a pause after you ask the question,
Mhm.
or if they repeat the question and they say, "Yeah, that's a good question," and they're like stalling, waiting for the answer to appear,
Mhm.
and then they just rip through like they're reading. So, but the app is final interview dot
It's final round up.
final round.
And I like the app because it does help applicants practice and feel more comfortable, and it'll help you do mock interviews and things like that. I don't mind applicants preparing for interviews using AI. I just don't want you to use AI during the interview to give you the answers.
Yeah,
I am personally okay if you use AI for code assessments and things like that because you're going to use it for your job anyway. But I do think there has to be kind of guardrails and things like that. Like you've got to understand what it is you're looking at and things like
yeah.
that.
Well, quick question though. Okay, so going back to your statement about the candidates having been able to answer questions or an interview, are they on video conference?
Mhm.
They're usually on Zoom,
Yeah.
But how are they
and
able
Zoom
some
to do what are they doing just
So on a Zoom conference, so imagine like we are right now, I just turn on my phone and I open up the app, which is
final round AI.
final round, and I put it on and I turn down the volume so it doesn't speak the answer. And it's listening. It pops up the answer and they're just reading it right there.
Because you've already fed them the job description, you fed them the resume, you probably have fed them information on your projects and things like that. So it's pulling from your background to answer, and it should be from your background,
Yep.
but it's an AI generated answer. And that's what my manager said. He goes, I just felt like it wasn't like a genuine conversation. And that's when I just stopped him and I said, hey, just talk to me.
Yeah.
I want to get to know you,
Yeah.
not your AI tool that you're using. And he goes, I appreciated the fact that the candidate has said, yes, sir, I'm using AI. Um, and again, we move the candidate on.
Yeah. But it's one of those things like, do I say I'm using AI, not using AI? Do I reach up and just flip my phone down and just go, no, I wasn't doing that?
did you see the post about the student and the professor at the college level? So there's a
I've seen a
student
number
using
of those.
using AI for his paper that he
Oh, yeah.
had to turn in.
Yeah.
And the professor said, "No, I don't want you turning in a paper where you used AI." He said, "Why not?" He said, I still wrote it in my own language, but I used AI for the research like I would anything else." So the professor had to go and speak amongst her peers, see, are we going to start allowing this? And they said, well, yeah, we're going to, like you said, put some boundaries around this, set some limits, and be able to, but everyone's going to use it, you know? And so even though the professor's saying, no, you can't, it's part of what we're using to learn, so why can't we use what we glean from AI for projects that we have to submit for school?
True.
One of the keys, though, is to make sure that it's giving you real data because AI does lie and it does make up things and it'll tell you it makes up things. I'm like, are you hallucinating? Yes, that was a hallucination. I'm like, why did you do that? And I argue constantly with it and just have this conversation back and
But
forth.
here's the most amazing thing. Gail and I are both we're in Texas, right? And my kids are not allowed to use their phone or any type of technology at school. So they have shut that all down. So think about that the Texas has basically prevented the opportunity for you to be able to use that in the classroom. What happens at home, doing homework, whatever, but they kind of stopped by not allowing the technology in the classroom, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Now, it's good and it's bad, in my opinion, being an AI guy that I love because are my kids as AI fluent as they could be if they were using it every day in school? So it's kind of I can see the advantage disadvantage, but I'm on team not having the technology in class because I want them to truly learn it because it means more and they gather and get to know how things are done, not just having it be there.
You don't want it to be a crutch. Like, I can't function if I don't have AI anymore. Like, I don't want my kids to do that.
Yeah.
Personally don't want to do that. It's easy. Like, it's, oh, let me give AI to get the answer.
Yeah. We all have seen I mean, showing age here, but we have seen recruiting before the computer. We've seen it even before like email. The fact we were, it was like
Before
paper,
Google.
paper, then
Mhm.
mail, then fax, then email, then what? Social media, now AI. We have seen this like progression. And the thing that's always interesting to me is that the techniques that you've used year over year, back way back when, don't really change. It's the technology that you have that enables you to be able to do that same technique, only different in a new way.
Right.
And so that's why look to history sometimes to be able to give you some advantages for the future. So
Oh, I say that all the time. I say all the time. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's a whole different conversation. So going back to recruiters reading and reviewing resumes, I wonder if a year from now or 2 years from not even 2 years from now, if that's going to be a sellable service for different talent acquisition organizations or staffing agencies. We have humans reviewing our resumes. It could flip back
you
around,
never
you never
know.
know.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the full service. Like, which service do you want? Do you want fully automated? Do you want like human? There may be advantages, disadvantages in some situations. So there you go. I think you're
I'm
definitely
onto
you're
something.
onto something there.
Well, and
Yeah.
I keep getting these RPO companies saying, "Hey, here's these outsourced recruiters for $9 an hour." And I'm thinking to myself, "No, that's part of my selling feature for my company is that I'm using US recruiters." Yeah, I mean, it's like, "What?" You never know. Well, and again, last year we weren't even talking about agentic AI. This year we are. Like you said, it started what about 3 to 5 months ago. And now what are we rolling into next year? It's just moving so fast. It's like this runaway freight train.
Yeah.
Right.
The next gen is really Gail and I do a lot of like, this is what we see as kind of like next generation, next thing coming up. I think that you'll probably see it in the next release. Probably it's already kind of there in five in ChatGPT 5. But and like we talked about, like creating your own custom GPT, cuts creating your own agent to do so many things. Like it knows your likes, it knows how you answer email, it knows how you talk, it knows your likes, dislikes. You could say, plan my vacation to go to this place, and it's operating as your travel agent. You can say, I want you to answer this email for me, and it will answer and it'll be like, is this correct? Do you want me to send it off for you? I mean, we're getting to that point to where the coolest thing that I've heard is that someone had their mind blown that they took a personality test, like one of those insightful personality tests that tell you, and then they ask the agent or they ask ChatGPT to take it on their behalf to see how close they would be. Say, take this test as I am, as if you were me. And they said it was stunning how close it was.
Oh.
I mean, like, it's scary how much, things are being learned. So, yeah. But and we haven't even gotten into the video stuff on the
Oh,
likeness,
I know.
you
I know.
know.
We didn't even
Yeah.
get a chance
Mhm.
to get into well, I mean, real quick, because I mean, we gotta wrap up here. Predictive analytics, the Moneyball techniques for recruiting. We had a brief conversation around that. So just quickly, let's talk about that before and then we'll wrap up.
I'm a big fan of anytime you can find predictive analytics, especially if you can use anything that I see as from whether it's using the custom GPTs to use reporting, find those analytics. I think that using ChatGPT also is going to allow you to find those predictive analytics that may not be as apparent as most people think. Obviously, most people are just like, how do you think of a good recruiter? Well, okay, what's their time to fill? What's their cost per hire? Maybe there's some other little things that are out there. So I think that we can be using ChatGPT and some of the analytics to come up with that. There's something that I always love. I'm a big fan of Moneyball, the movie, Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill in that book about the Oakland A's, and they didn't have a lot of money, and they were like, okay, what would be a clever way of using analytics to be able to tell me how to do things better? I did this. It was before AI stuff, but I actually was able to do this with looking at, and obviously I would use AI, but looking at taking all of the individuals that had come through the college pipeline and the people that had interviewed with the company and had gotten an offer but had rejected it, then taking it, tracking that person to 4 years, 5 years, 6 years in, and then finding them, and then using that as predictive analytic that this person rejected an offer from us years ago. But if we were to find them, interview them, I bet they would get the offer again. And more than likely you would hire him, be able to hire him again. That technique of being able to, that's just an analytic there that you might be able to find some predictive analytic. Use generative AI maybe to find what would be
Mhm.
an analytic that might be able to help you with that, and then be able to then just figure out, have the research, and then be able to find, is it really true? So there's just some thoughts on how to think a little bit differently using some of the data. I think we love data, and as the data can be able to help you. So a lot of fun to be able to do with things, and with, I think with API connections that are going to happen, that you can do more and more with AI to where you can hook it up to do more automation, more personalization. I think that the days of having the ability, I have my own bot that has my likeness, to where I'm sitting in this chair, I'm in a black shirt, and I do videos that it's just like me, except I never appeared or said a word in it. I do think we're not that far away from being able to have a personalized message, a personalized email content, a voice message that could go to an individual, a voice outreach message that could go to somebody that is generated by GPT or by tools that can be, looks like it's coming from you. It's a link maybe, so they wouldn't know that that it was pre-recorded or whatever, or that it's not even real.
Well, just think about voicemail. It used to be that we used to hook up machines. Remember answering machines? And then we
Oh,
moved
hell
from
yeah.
answering machines to voicemail, and now we're talking about voicemail to AI.
Mhm.
Yeah. I
Gee.
mean, there was a trick that was maybe 6 years ago, 5 years ago, of massively leaving one voicemail on all the cell phones at one time, just like that. I mean, so some of the systems have it to be able to do that as like a mass outreach campaign that you can do. So,
All right, you guys, we're gonna have to wrap this up. You know what? This has been the most amazing conversation. Seriously, I've learned so much from both of you. Thank you.
thanks. Hey,
Thank you for having us.
Hey, how can people reach you?
I'm at ghouston@grailbio.com. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn as well.
yeah. And I'm Jim at recruitingadvisors.com, and that's advisors with an ORS at the end. So Jim at recruitingadvisors.com, or linkedin.com/in/, Jim Schnyder. And it's SCHNY like New York, DER.
Thank you both.
All
Appreciate
right.
it.
Well, thank you.
All
I appreciate
right.
you having
Pleasure. Thanks for the time. This
Of
is a lot of
course.
fun.
Thank you. All right.